Welcome to Unlock Your Child's Full Potential. I'm Billy, mom of three, positive parenting coach, and your guide to raising kids with connection, not control. Here we talk about parenting without punishment and constant power struggles, building deep bonds, and creating a home where kids want to listen, so you can enjoy family life to the fullest. Today's guest is someone I've admired for a long time, Lenore Skenazy. You may know her as the founder of the Free Range Kids movement, or maybe you've read her work through Let Grow, the nonprofit she co-founded to promote childhood independence. Lenore became known as the world's worst mom, a title she wears with pride, after letting her 9-year-old son ride the New York City subway alone and writing about it. That one story sparked a national conversation about fear, freedom, and what kids really need to grow up confident and capable. Lenore has spent the years since championing the idea that when we trust our kids with more responsibility and freedom, they rise to the occasion. Through her writing, her speaking, and her brilliant Let Grow programs, she's helping parents all over the world let go of fear and give their kids a chance to thrive. I'm so excited to dive into this conversation, not just as a podcast host, but as a mom of three who's been deeply inspired by Lenore's message. Hi, Lenore. It's so lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too.
I've been following your work for about a year now, and I have to admit, I'm probably more of a helicopter mom than I would like to think. But thanks to you and your message, I've started making some small changes. So thank you.
Okay.
Your work
Well,
is making a difference.
Wow, that's cool.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. Can you tell the subway story that launched the Free Range Kids movement? I know you've shared it many
Yeah, no,
times.
I'm happy to do it. It's the story. So many years ago, when our younger son he started asking me and my husband here in New York City, where we live, if we'd take him someplace he'd never been before and let him find his own way home by subway. He wanted to just take the subway by himself. So we let him, and it was fine, and it was great. It was exciting for our son. It was fun for us. And I wrote a column, Why I Let My 9-year-old Ride the Subway Alone. And 2 days later, I was on all these TV shows that you haven't heard of that were huge in America, defending my decision. And I got the nickname America's Worst Mom. So I started a blog the weekend after all of that, and I called it Free Range Kids to explain that I love safety and I love my son. I love my other son. I want them to survive. I give them helmets when they ride their bikes and, seat belts, all these things. But at some point, you have to let them out of your sight, and that's not bad parenting.
I agree so much. And yet it's so tough for us. And there is this cultural belief that more supervision means more safety, but it seems we've gone too far. And what are some of the intended consequences of this, in your opinion?
Yeah. The thing that pains me is that parents feel both things at once, and it's a difficult place to be in. It feels like, oh, I'm not supposed to be supervising so much. I'm squishing their self-confidence and their spirit and their problem-solving abilities. But if I don't watch them, I'm a bad parent because what if something terrible happens? I could never forgive myself. So I feel for parents because they're in a place where they literally cannot win. You step back and it's like, what kind of neglectful parent are you? And you step in and it's like, hey, helicopter hussy, get out of the way. And so what I hope that I'm doing through Free Range Kids and now through Let Grow, which is the nonprofit that I run that grew out of Free Range Kids, same goal, making it easier for us to step back, is I'm just hope that it's becoming a little easier to say, I think my kids are ready for some independence. I'm going to let them do some stuff on their own, not because I don't care, but because I do. That's all I would like to see happen.
And what do you think are the biggest barriers today to kids growing up confident and resilient?
Well, let's talk about what are the biggest barriers to letting go. Because I hope that by letting go a little more, kids will become more confident and resilient. But I also don't want to say that I have the secret recipe for raising a perfect kid and you have to do it this quickly and by this age and this much freedom, because that I don't have. I didn't even have it with my own kids. Every kid is going to go like this throughout life. You just got to get used to it. But maybe that's one of the barriers, is the idea that kids shouldn't ever be afraid, shouldn't ever be disappointed or frustrated. And I agree, it is horrible to watch. When your kid is sad about something or regretful or remorseful, I hate it. So the real key The blinding insight that I've had in 17 years of talking about the same topic every day is this. It's when you're with your kids and you see them do something a little stupid or risky or painful or slow, you will have an extremely hard time not jumping in. Hi, try it this way. Have you thought of, let me, hey, honey, that's great. Why don't you try all that stuff? It's, at least with me, it's impossible not to do that. And my kids are in their 20s now. And I tell them, put down the phone when you're crossing the street. I mean, it's just impossible not to assert, the solutions that you've come up with in life. Do it this way, it's faster. Do it this way, you won't get hurt. So the only solution to not jumping in is to not be there. That is the only, that's it. Simple. Wow,
Yeah,
that's a
that's
blinding
true.
insight,
Yeah.
right? If you are with your kids, you will intervene, you will worry and you will intervene. You will empathize, you will feel all the terrible feelings that they're feeling when they're a little excluded or when they goofed or they broke the bowl or they didn't catch the ball. So to save yourself all that pain and to allow your kid to go through enough of it so that they toughen up a little and deal with it like, okay, I did screw up, but tomorrow I can do better, or nobody hates me for it, or wow, I better learn to, I better practice my free throw some more. The only way that the kids can get to that point is if you're not watching. Even if you're watching, oh, I'm barely watching, oh, I'm sitting on the bench, I barely ever look up, I'm reading a book, you're there. That changes the whole equation. And now another way that the equation has changed is through phones, because even when you're not there,
You're
you can
tracking
be
them.
you can be
Yeah.
tracking them. You can text them, honey, you said you were going to be home, or I saw you got a B minus on that Spanish test, and maybe we can talk about that. Or why did you stop at Starbucks? It's right before dinner. I have a friend, he's tracking his kids who are in their 20s, and he has 3 kids, and they were going out to dinner together, and 2 were in a restaurant. Excuse me. And one was in the parking lot, and the dad was seeing that the parking lot dot on his map was not moving. And so he's like, why isn't she going into the restaurant? Is something the matter? Is she hurt? Is she kidnapped? Did she fall? A heart attack? Whatever. The girl in her 20s. So immediately he has to text her, are you okay? And it's like, yes, Dad, I'm fine. I'm sending some emails before I went into dinner. But the reason that anecdote resonates so much with me is that he thought that having the tracking device would give him enough peace of mind so that he wouldn't be worried all the time. But by having the tracking device, he's worried all the time. And then he's intervening. So there's something about our culture that makes it almost impossible for us to step back and let our kids step up. And yet we all feel more confident and I'd say happier when we let that happen.
Yeah, yeah. And you've said many times that when we treat kids as fragile, we're making them fragile.
Yeah, I wish that was my quote. That was a woman I used to work with named Tracy who said, you know what? Yeah, by treating kids as fragile, we're making them so. And I also work with Jonathan Haidt, who you probably know wrote The Anxious Generation. And what did he say? Oh, he always talks about how there are systems there are things that are fragile. Oddly enough, I have 2 cups, both filled with coffee at the moment. But if I drop this, not only would I lose some coffee, but the cup would break. And then if I dropped my pen, nothing bad would happen, but nothing good would happen. But then there are some systems that actually need a little stress to become stronger. And one of them is the immune system. Your kid needs to encounter some germs so that they build up the antibodies so that they're not getting colds all the time. And then another thing is bones. And I'm the worst person to show this because I barely have any bones. But if people who have strong bones work on resistance training, right? Someday I will too. But the ultimate in anti-fragility is children, because children are built to grow stronger because they had a near miss, they were a little afraid, they were frustrated, they lost, they had an argument with a friend. All these experiences accrete into, a person. When we're with them, we want to take those out of their lives because it's awful to watch. In America, there's the joke that everybody gets a trophy. Do you have that same
Yeah,
expression?
we do have participation trophies, we call
Participation trophies.
them.
And people say, are you against that? I'm like, I'm not against the trophies. I'm against the fact that the parents are there, because the parents are there and they see the kid disappointed. Of course, they give a trophy. I would
Mm.
too, because I hate seeing my kid going home like this. And we had an interesting blog post the other day by a psychology professor at Yale, no less, whose son was participating in, I can't remember, it's karate or judo, something like that. And he was doing pretty well and he was advancing through the ranks. And then there was this big tournament, and there weren't enough kids for him to compete against in his exact age and weight category. So he had to compete against somebody who was a little older and bigger. And guess what? He lost. No big surprise. But then they gave him a medal, gold medal. And soon after that, he told his dad, I'm quitting karate. And his dad said, why? You're doing so well. He says, I can't stand it. And it took a long time, even for this psychology professor, to pry out of his kid, why are you suddenly quitting karate when you love it? It's part of your life. And it was finally the kid said, because they gave me a medal. And what he was saying without articulating the rest of it is that, like, they think that I'm such a wimp or I'm so stupid that I didn't notice that I lost. Of course I lost. The guy was bigger. I wasn't as good. If I want to get as good as him, it's going to take more effort on my part. So he was so insulted by the infantilizing and the assuming fragility that he skedaddled. I mean, he's out of karate. That's it. And you know that the adults were doing that because they felt bad for the kid and they wanted him to feel like a winner. But you feel like a loser if the people who know you best don't believe in you.
Yes, believing in you. That's the point. My kids don't even want to go to a competition where they know that they're not going to win.
I don't like to go to those either. You know, part of the thing that's changed about childhood is that, you know, I work with these brilliant people. And so there's John, but there's also a guy named Peter Gray, Gray. He's a professor of psychology, and he wrote a book called Free to Learn about how kids learn when they are engaged and curious and trying to work something out, which is what they do in play or what they do when they're interested in anything. And one of the things he points out is that, you know, until very recently, play was just sort of free form. Kids would be together in a group of mixed ages and they'd come up with something to do, and then it'd be boring and they'd change the rules, or somebody would quit and they had to change the teams. And there was no adult involved. And that meant that, yes, you were competitive, but there wasn't anybody else witnessing your triumph or your defeat. And everybody sort of knew who was good and who was bad. And so you tried to make the teams kind of even. And it's only with this insertion of adult supervision in and adults organizing all of kids' activities that things got really distorted to the point where you have to pay to be in it, your parents have to drive you, you have to buy a uniform, there's money involved, and there's travel, and there's always somebody else deciding how good or bad you are. And if we could get away from that and have kids organizing their own games and solving their own spats, that's why Mother Nature put the play drive into kids, is so that they would learn how to be,
Right.
you know, how to make something happen and how to get buy-in. And so one of the things Let Grow, the nonprofit that I run, tries to get schools to just stay open for mixed age, no phones, free play. You put out some balls, some cardboard boxes, an old suitcase, you know, a wedding dress, whatever you got. And then the kids play with these loose parts, and some of them are going to play here. And are we going to make is the box going to be a fort? No, it's going to be a fairy castle. Okay, how about a doghouse? I mean, it's just, they come up with stuff to do. And if they're bored there, they can go kick a ball with a friend. And if they hog the ball, nobody wants to play with them. And then the kid goes and plays on the swings and meets somebody else. And it's exactly the calibration that Mother Nature expected to happen. And it is messy, right? There is somebody who's left out. There is somebody who's bored. There is somebody who's having trouble making a friend, and then they do make a friend. That's the thing that we've seen. We once interviewed a kid who was we call these a Let Grow Play Club, and all our materials are free. And one of the kids we interviewed at one of these clubs said, I said, what do you like about Play Club? And he said, well, you know, before Play Club, I didn't have any friends and blah, blah, blah. It's like, whoa, no friends. Because the easiest way to make a friend is when you're playing with them. How are kids supposed to make friends otherwise? Like you're sitting in class? It just doesn't make sense. So we've taken this very nutrient-rich part of kids' lives out, and we've replaced it with sort of the astroturf of organized games and supervised activities. And we wonder why they're drooping. And it's because they're not getting the vitamins, the enrichment that Mother Nature assumed would naturally happen because kids have the drive to play.
Yeah. And that can happen in an urban lifestyle.
Anywhere.
If it's in New York, it can happen anywhere, right? With summer approaching, a lot of families are filling up their kids' calendars with camps, activities. So there's always someone supervising them. And I totally get it. I'm one of those moms that wants to be sure that the kid is safe. But I wonder what might kids be missing out on when
Well,
everything is scheduled.
well, all I try to do is try to figure out easy ways, even for nervous parents, because I consider myself a nervous parent as well, to give kids back some of the independence and free play that we've been talking about. And one of the things you might do is your kid's not going to be in camp every single second. So one mom wrote to me recently, and I haven't even like made it anything official yet on our site, but she came up with a great idea and she called it Friendship Club. I think I'm going to call it the Let Grow Friendship Club so we get credit for it. But it's this simple. It's like in your neighborhood, your kids probably have a couple of friends, right?
Right.
Yeah. Like what, like 3 or 4 houses that.
Maybe two, because they go to school not in our neighborhood. So we travel to school, and then
Mhm.
kids in our neighborhood, we actually don't know them because kids don't spend so much time by
Yeah.
themselves out there.
Yeah. All right. So then I'm going to recommend 2 things. The first thing I was going to talk about was if they have these 2 friends in the neighborhood, call the other moms or dads or whatever and make a friendship club, Let Grow Friendship Club, where if my kid knocks on your door or your kid knocks on my door or kids 1 and 2 knock on door 3, if the kid who's at home is free, the parents say, sure, come on in and play. It doesn't require a lot of organizing. It doesn't require a million texts. Maybe the mom says, oh, your kid is over here now, and just text that. But so that your kids have a little freedom to go in the neighborhood and see their friends and make things happen. The other thing I would suggest, and I just saw this happening in one town in California, they wrote to us last week. They sent me the flyer. I'd given a lecture there and I said, please keep Fridays free for free play. Try not to give your kids soccer or piano lessons or whatever that afternoon if you can possibly help it. And so one of the moms sent a notice out to all the other parents in the neighborhood. This Friday from 3 to 5, drop your kids off at, and she named Park A or Park B, and leave. Yes, leave. Your kids will be fine without you, and they'll have time to play, and we'll have time to not be with them. You can cook, you can talk, you can have an affair. Just don't watch your kids. Do something else. Just remember that not every second of your life has to be every second of their life. And this is going to continue. And so that's really simple. Just declaring, hey, guess what? And especially for kids who don't have friends in the neighborhood. Here in New York, too, they go to different schools. Like there's an art school here, and there's a magnet school, and there's a math school. And so kids don't necessarily end up meeting their next door neighbors. But if you can say, Friday afternoons from 3 to 5, I'll be at the park, and you can just drop your kids off. Then the other parents know, okay, so there's some adult there and we can drop our kids off. And then the kids start making their friends, and then your neighborhood changes. It changes for them because, oh, hi, and it changes for you. You recognize the other kids, and it changes their life because they don't have to wait till they go to school or to camp to see a friend again.
I love that. And that's the reason my 11-year-old asked for a phone. Mom, during the summer, I cannot contact my friends. They're all over the city. Maybe that's a way I can avoid the phone. I
That's
don't
interesting.
like.
Yeah, the phone seems bad, but if they need a phone, I mean, if you're going to let your 11-year-old, she calls her friend across the city, the friend is available, let's go meet at place X. If you're going to let that happen, then I could see giving your kid a flip phone so that they can make some arrangements,
uh,
because we don't have a landline anymore. You don't have a landline, right?
No, no.
Interesting. You
I
don't want to
want
leave
to.
your kid unable to contact their friends. So flip phone or borrow your phone or whatever.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And I also downloaded the Let Grow Independence Kit.
Oh, you
And I
did? Oh, tell me
love the
about it.
ideas. Yeah,
Oh,
like
great.
let your kid take the bus by themselves or go to the store and buy something. All those little ideas. Can you share with our listeners how they can start small and build their
Oh,
child's
sure.
independence?
You can start small or you can start big. They're both good. But our Let Grow Independence Kit, like I said, everything on our site is free, is a home version of something I'm going to tell you about for schools for a second, and then I'll explain what it is. We like schools to do what we call the Let Grow experience, which is a homework assignment that teachers give kids, and we're talking about kindergartners up through high schoolers, that just says basically go home and do something new on your own with your parents' permission, but without your parents. And then we give, as you've been mentioning, a list of things. And the list is pretty comprehensive because It's stuff for little kids and for older kids, but sometimes some older kids have never used a sharp knife, and sometimes there's younger kids who are, making dinner for their families. So it's just a list of wherever you find yourself ready to do something and your kids are ready, that's fine to do it, whether it seems very simple or more complicated. Ride your bike, go to the store, walk the dog, climb a tree, on and on and on. We have like, I don't know, 2 or 3 pages of ideas. And of course, there's different things in different neighborhoods too, that, you might have a local park or a program or whatever. Anyways, when schools do this, we love it because then it's a collective answer to the collective problem. Nobody knows when they can let their kids do anything anymore, so they don't. But if everybody's doing it, nobody's saying like, why did Billy let her kid go to the store? It's like, well, I'm letting my kid go and get his haircut. Oh, I'm letting my kid go get an ice cream. So it re-normalizes the idea of letting go of your kids and letting them do something on their own. And sometimes the kids want to do things together. In fact, it's way more fun. Let's go together and get my mom a cake from the bakery or whatever. That seems ideal. So the home version of that is called the Let Grow Independence Kit. And it's the same materials. It's like, here's why independence is good for kids. Here's a list of things that you might want them to try. And pretty soon we're coming out with, tell me if you like this idea, a 30-day plan. Day 1, you have to say yes to something you were about to say no to. Day 2, you have to let them do something in the kitchen by themselves. Day 3, you have to let them outside. I haven't published that in 17 years on the same topic. Do you like that idea?
I love that idea because it's for the parents, for them
It's
to
very
let
much
go.
for the parents.
Yeah, I
They're
love that
all
idea.
these things are for the parents. Yeah.
Yeah, but if it comes from the teacher, then the kid will be, I have an assignment, I have to do this. So it's a little better if I can sell this to our school. So I'll try.
Yeah. And remember, free. It's all free. Yeah. And we do require either the teacher or the principal or whoever talk to our school's account manager for like 20 minutes so that they go through the materials together. But that's it. There's no money, no money involved.
No, I mean, sell the idea. And I want to touch on the topic of safety because we are letting them roam the streets on their own. And still, it might be not the fear of kidnapping. Nowadays, it's more like exposure to people who seem unstable, maybe someone who's drunk, someone who's aggressive or using drugs. And what is a more helpful way to approach these real concerns without shutting down our kids' independence?
Well, I'd say walk around with your kids a couple times and point out, like, what seems weird about that guy? Oh, he's lurching. Okay, well, how about we don't engage with the guy who's lurching? And here, I'd say the more important things are teach your kids to cross the street safely, to look left, look right, look left again, make eye contact with the drivers, make sure they see you. That's probably going to save more lives than just saying worry about the drug addict. And what's going to save even more lives, weirdly, is not stranger danger, like we're talking about. It's actually the majority of crimes against kids are committed by people they know, whether it's an uncle or a stepfather or a teacher or whatever. And so there's actually something called the 3 Rs, which I'm sure don't start with R in Bulgarian, but in English they do. And the 3 Rs are this: recognize no one can touch you where your bathing suit covers, right? They're just not allowed. 2 is resist. Okay, somebody tries to bother you, kiss you, touch you, you're allowed to run, kick, scream. You don't have to be nice. You don't have to be polite, even though it's an adult. You can be just aggressive and get the hell out of there. And then the third thing is report. If somebody has been bothering you or saying, this is our little secret, and if you tell anyone, I'll hurt you or I'll hurt your mom or I'll hurt your dog, tell me. Nothing bad will happen. Nothing bad will happen to anyone, no matter what anybody said about a secret. Don't keep secrets from me when it's about something like that. And no matter what you did, I won't be mad at you. Say the kid feels really guilty. It's like, well, take away some of the guilt and the reluctance, and you're taking away the power of that evil person because they thrive on secrecy. And so rather than saying, watch out for the drunk lurching down the street or the drug addict, which I live in New York City, they're around, teach your kids to be aware of the much more likely danger, which is somebody that they know trying to convince them to do something icky.
Yeah, that's so true. Unfortunate statistic.
And something
And
like 90% of the crimes against kids are committed by people they know.
terrible. And you've talked before about the importance of teaching kids to talk to strangers, to actually talk to
Yes.
strangers,
Yes.
because when they're in trouble, they can reach out and not just to families, moms, but people.
Anyone. Right, right, right. I mean, if your kid feels like they're being followed down the street, wouldn't you like them to be able to run across the street and stand next to the guy who's selling ice cream or the guy who's raking leaves? I mean, just wait for that van to pass. Somebody told me this advice. It wasn't my advice, but I think it's great, which is that you can tell your kids you can talk to anyone, you cannot go off with anyone. And that allows them to really be curious and learn things. And if they need help, get help. And it also keeps them from doing the terrible thing, which is going off with the person, which is how they could ever be hurt. So talk, but don't go off. And also, kids don't know who's a stranger. It's like, well, mom, you talked to the guy at the store when you were looking for the hairbrushes. So is that a stranger? Is that a friend? It doesn't make sense to kids to talk about strangers. Just say you can talk to anyone, you can't go off with anyone.
That's such a great point and a nice
Yeah.
distinction.
Yeah.
Wow. And how can we tell when we're being too helpful? Like, how do we start?
You are there. Here's how you can tell when you're not being excessively helpful. You trust your kid to do something without you there, without you watching, without you helping, maybe even without you tracking. That's it. Like I said
Yeah.
before, you will be helpful. I'm helpful. I'm helpful with my kids in their 20s. And some of it's good. I mean, I feel like I'm, smart and like, well, before you send that resume, include a cover letter that says, "Dear Sir." I mean, it's not like you should like be mum about everything. But if you do step back, your kids will realize like, oh, I figured out how to make this or how to do this or how to solve the problem. And your kid needs a million of those experiences throughout their childhood to become like us. We know how to optimize our time. We know how to get things done. We know how to talk to the guy at the grocery. And they need experience just like we had experience, which is how we got to this point. So I'd say the easiest way to not be too helpful or too intrusive is to, once again, just not always be with them.
But right now they are afraid, already anxious. We've made them this way. So it needs a little push in the beginning.
Right. So the push is the let grow experience. I mean, that's why it's so good to have it from a school. Then it's not you saying, "Honey, I think it's time you went to the barber on your own." It's like, "No, I don't want to go. Take me. It's far." It's like, "All right, I will." So rather than getting into that dialogue, just say, "Oh, you have to do something on your own. What's it going to be? Let's look at this list." Right? I mean, they have to do it. It's a homework assignment. And that makes it so much easier because it's not you saying, "I think you should do this." It's not a chore. It's homework, right? It's not a good idea. It's homework. Just get it done. Go do something.
Yeah,
That's
I
what I
love
recommend.
it.
And
I
also
love it.
the other kids are doing these things. So you don't want to be, everybody's off on their adventure. And what did you do? I used my fork. You know?
Yeah, and maybe if the school doesn't want to, we can just have a club of moms
You
who
definitely can.
inspire our kids
Right.
to do it together.
Right. We're starting to get those. And what's neat is that I know that parents are very concerned about their kids spending too much time online and on their phones and their devices. And it's like, well, it's sort of because they're on those because that's where they can have fun. That's where they can have fun without their parents watching everything or helping. It's where they can have adventures, they can play games, they can meet up with their friends, they can giggle, they can flirt. And we've taken away any opportunities for them to do those on their own in the real world. So of course the virtual world is much more attractive because that's where they can have their childhood. We've moved their childhood onto the electronics. So to expect them to leave the electronics behind, you got to give them an alternative. And that's what giving them some free time in the real world, some free time and some responsibility. You got to go walk the dog, you got to go get the beans for dinner. That rebalances their life because you haven't taken away all their freedom and their electronics. You've taken away their electronics. We say, take away the phone and open the door. It's hard to open the door, but if you do open the door, the real world is actually quite interesting.
That's a beautiful solution. Instead of
Thanks. It
trying
took a
to,
long time to distill it to that.
well, thank you. And can you tell the listeners where they can learn more about the Let Grow
Oh,
projects, follow your
mhm.
work, and just start handing some responsibility back to their kids?
Yeah, responsibility, free play, independence, kids only time. what do we call it? Acts of self-reliance. Yes, so you see the let grow in my caption here. That's L-E-T, new word, grow. And so if you go to letgrow.org, that's our website. Click on schools, you'll see all our free school programs. Click on parents, there's our free stuff for parents. In America, we've changed the laws in 8 states so that you can't be considered neglectful just because you let your kid play outside or go to the store. I don't know what your laws are in Bulgaria or the rest of Europe, but if they seem ambiguous and they seem to suggest that you can never take your eyes off your kids, maybe it's time to change those laws. And then what else do we have? Oh, we have this cute little card that you can print out, once again, free. And it says, I'm not lost or neglected. I'm a let grow kid. I'm allowed to talk to people. I'm talking to you, right? But I won't go off with you. And here's my parents' number if you don't believe me. And so we've heard of some kids carrying those, and, just a little thing to wave at a busybody who thinks that you shouldn't be outside playing.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you, Lenore. Thank you for your time and insights.
Well, thank you. I love talking to Bulgaria. As we were saying before we came on, I've been there twice, and I had such yummy, yummy food and had so much fun there. And I loved being in Sofia, where you could look down and you could see some of the archaeology, like through the street, it felt like, which was just amazing because I was going to be an archaeologist if I wasn't whoever I am. So it's fun for me to connect.
It was an honor talking to you.
Bye, Billy.
Thank you for tuning in. If you found value in this episode, please share it with a friend and help me reach more moms around the world. See you next time.